this is an enormous task and we have an enormous job to rebuild Labor.
In June 2021, after 3 straight election defeats, the Tasmanian Labor Party voted overwhelmingly to elect the member for Franklin, David O'Byrne, as leader. His first pledge to heal bitter divisions within the party, which had derailed recent election campaigns.
I've got commitments from across the party that we are in this together.
The O'Byrne family have been major players in Tasmanian politics for a long time. David's sister Michelle is a former federal and current state MP, and their late mother was a life member of the Labor Party. David O'Byrne is a former union boss, and his rise to party leader was backed by the dominant left faction of Tasmanian Labor.
He was seen to be the better of the 2 candidates that were put forward, as it's turned out. He only was able to hold that position for a short period of time.
I will be standing aside as opposition leader today for the duration of the investigation into this matter.
Former union staffer Rachel Midson came forward with allegations O'Byrne sexually harassed her while he was the head of the Liquor, Hospitality and Miscellaneous Union in 2007 and 2008.
Thank you.
He did not deny he'd sent suggestive text messages to the then 22-year-old or that he'd kissed her twice, but he said he thought the actions were consensual.
I now understand that this was not the case.
Tasmanian Labor commissioned an internal investigation which found his behaviour was inappropriate, but it did not amount to sexual harassment as defined by Labor policy. David O'Byrne refused to resign, but moved to the crossbench as new allegations emerged. None were substantiated.
Well, it's been a very strange few weeks.
Just 51 days after she stood down as leader of the party, O'Byrne's predecessor, Rebecca White, was back.
I just want to acknowledge that the last few weeks have been incredibly difficult for the Labor Party, but today is a full stop.
The party's internal troubles continued, and Tasmanian Labor was placed under the administration of the National Executive, overseen by Labor heavyweights Doug Cameron and Nick Sherry.
We are determined to make this party a great party.
Over the past 12 months, the saga largely faded from public view, until last week.
I still think I've got something to give and I will be nominating for pre-selection through the party processes.
Ben McGregor is a former state party president and one-time candidate who was forced to resign over his own text messages. He believes David O'Byrne has enough personal popularity to win a seat under Tasmania's electoral system.
My sense is he's got enough numbers to get a quota, to get elected, particularly in the 7 seats, whether as an independent or a member of Labor. My sense, if they want a majority government, they're probably going to have O'Byrne on side because of that quota that he might bring.
He believes David O'Byrne also has plenty of support amongst Labor members.
O'Byrne is a good performer. He's fairly credible in a lot of the work he's done. He's got good relationships and he's pretty well known.
David O'Byrne wants to be the voice of the people, but when it actually mattered most, he didn't listen or hear that one person, which was Rachel.
Tanya Rogers is a close friend of Rachel Midson, who made the original complaint about O'Byrne. She quit the Health and Community Services Union last week after its leader called on Labor to allow Mr O'Byrne back into the fold.
I'm happy to take questions.
I couldn't actually be a part of a union who would then come out and actually support someone like David O'Byrne. It's devastating for Rachel.
Rebecca White doesn't want O'Byrne back.
Well, I have made my position clear, and as I've also made clear, I'm not going to provide further comment on this.
But with the party in administration, a failure to resolve O'Byrne's pre-selection at the local level would see the matter land with the National Executive.
National Exec is relying on its people on the ground locally to make those decisions and probably only really want to step in if there's an argument. And this provides an argument.
If the decision does go to the National Executive, a group of 20 politicians and union officials divided between the party's left and right faction will be asked to make the call. If members are split, the Prime Minister could be asked to weigh in. Former Tasmanian Labor MP Julian Amos says he can't see the National Executive backing O'Byrne.
In my view, it would be inconceivable that the National Executive would work against the leader, Rebecca White, so David would not get pre-selection.
The National Labor Conference begins tomorrow in Brisbane. Here in Tasmania, Labor figures will be watching with interest, not because any decisions will be made on David O'Byrne, but in case changes are made to the factional makeup of the National Executive, which could in turn impact his chances of pre-selection. A final decision on that could still be months away, and O'Byrne isn't backing down.
If people thought I was going to sort of drift off into the night after what happened, obviously they're wrong. I'm committed to this.